Hi, my name is Nika Gueci, and I'm with the Center for Mindfulness, Compassion, and Resilience at Arizona State University. And I am here with Dr. Sophia Town, and we're going to be talking a little bit about mindful leadership. So let's just start with who you are and what you do.
First, thank you so much for having me today. I'm very excited to be here. I'm Dr. Sophia Town, and I'm a social scientist with Arizona State University.
Okay.
I study human communication with an emphasis on mindful and humanistic leadership. And most of my work is really based on practical wisdom. So this is the idea that knowledge and theory should move us beyond knowing about the world, how the world works, toward deeper insights about what we should do about the world and how we should act and how we should be. And so my research is guided by three questions. How can we promote human flourishing in organizations?
Mm-hmm.
How can we foster leadership that cultivates human connection? And then how can we foster communication that aims to heal human suffering?
That's wonderful. So you're really taking research and using it as application for the real world. So tell us a little bit more about your research. You just completed your dissertation with the Hugh Downs School of Human Communication. So could you tell us about what mindfulness means in the context of leadership?
Yes. Mindfulness in the context of leadership really means cultivating a type of awareness of self, awareness of other, and awareness of the interactions between the leader and organization members. A type of awareness based on compassion and empathy and understanding and self-questioning. There are so many ways that mindfulness can show up in leadership, but three that come to mind that I think are very useful are leaders who practice mindfulness. Mindful leadership engages with curiosity. Mindful leadership is a leadership style that practices deep listening. And then also mindful leadership is a leadership style where self-care is prioritized.
So what can mindfulness do to help support with decision-making, with productivity, with work-life balance?
That is a fantastic question. It's something that we all really struggle with. So I think I'll answer each of those individually, if that's okay.
Sure.
In terms of decision-making, we make much better decisions when we're less reactive. So by practicing mindfulness, either in the form of meditation or even just sort of self-reflection and self-questioning, by practicing mindfulness, we can create some space between a stimulus, so someone coming to us with a question, someone sending us an email, a decision we need to make right away, that's the stimulus, right? We can create space between that stimulus and our reaction or our response. So oftentimes when we're faced with a decision, we feel like we have to decide right away. Especially leaders feel like they have to be all-knowing, they have to make a decision right away. But having mindfulness allows us to pause and reflect, maybe seek some diverse opinions, and then respond instead of react to those decisions. In terms of productivity, the thing is we're never going to get it all done during the day. It's just not going to happen, right? We always, the feeling of having your to-do list and not getting through all of it and, feeling guilty, right? I didn't get through everything I needed. What mindfulness does is it allows us to do two things. It allows us to really center on what is the most important. So if I don't get anything else done today, what's the number one thing that is most important to me? And what I recommend is having that intention, that number one goal, really be connected to your core value, your core mission. That way, if you don't get the other stuff, the tangential stuff done, you know that you did your best and you really still moved toward your primary goal. And then second, when we mindfully engage in tasks, we do a better job. I even see this with my students, when they do their homework mindfully, they only have to do it once. But everyone's like that, right? So instead of getting pulled in multiple directions or trying to multitask, which we know research tells us is impossible to do, really, multitasking, instead of getting distracted, if we mindfully focus on a task at hand, we just do the task better.
It sounds like mindfulness can help you tap into your values. And that can then help you be more productive at what you're going to do.
Yes, you have to. It's a daily practice. You have to ask yourself each day, what is my core value? So start the day with that. I write a sticky note and I put it on my computer and I write, today, this is my goal. And it can be big, relationships, or it can be small. Finish this project.
Right.
but yeah, reflecting on those core values.
And
Really
so
important.
we've both talked about mindfulness. Could you define what mindfulness means to you? There are so many different definitions. So could you just talk about what mindfulness means in your context of research?
Yes, and it is going to be different than some of the other definitions. I think all of the definitions are valuable.
Okay.
The one that I sort of am playing with right now is mindfulness is cultivating a type of awareness that allows us to see ourselves, others, and the world more clearly. That's very broad, obviously, but I think that people tend to conflate sometimes mindfulness with meditation. Meditation can help us cultivate mindfulness. It is probably the best way to cultivate mindfulness. But one way that I often engage with to cultivate mindfulness is I mentioned this before, but self-questioning.
Okay.
So constantly checking in with myself to ask myself, how am I feeling right now? What beliefs or values am I bringing to this conversation? How is my worldview coloring the lens through which this interaction is unfolding? So really checking in with ourselves, that can be a type of mindfulness as well. So awareness.
Okay. That's a good distinction between the other forms of mindfulness or the other definitions of mindfulness. So mindfulness is one of the key aspects of leadership that you talk about. Are there any other aspects to effective leadership that you can speak to?
There are so many, but one thing that I think is really important is compassion for self and for others.
Okay.
Which is very related to mindfulness, but it's not the same thing as mindfulness. Having compassion for self and others, I think is saying, having high expectations, saying, I know that you can do a great job. I know that I can do a great job. And we're going to fail. We're going to flop sometimes, and being accepting of the failings and the floppings. What that does, having this compassionate, high expectation, but high acceptance sort of mindset from a leadership context, is it leads to what's called co-elevating leadership. Co-elevating leadership is the idea that it's a leadership style where my success as a leader is really based on me uplifting and supporting my organization members. So if you think through history, some of the greatest leaders, the most well-loved leaders, their leadership emulated this style. They were leaders because they supported, they lifted up, and they gave their focus and attention and their service to their organization members. So to me, co-elevating leadership is really the leadership model that I think we should emulate as leaders.
And how can people develop their leadership potential on their own?
An underlying assumption needs to be addressed first.
Okay.
We live in a society where we tend to think there's this myth that you're either born as a leader or you're not.
Right.
And even if we can cognitively sort of agree with the fact that, I guess I could learn my leadership skills, emotionally, a lot of us are sort of tethered to that myth. We think that, well, I'm not really a leader. We need to get that out of the picture. We need to understand that that's a myth. Even great leaders, someone who might be very charismatic may not have the organization, or someone who may have great technical skill and knowledge may not have relationships. So people we think of as these great leaders probably started off kind of mediocre and then built their leadership over the years. So that's something we need to just kind of start with. So how can we cultivate leadership? Well, first off, we need to believe that it's possible. So have that growth mindset, sort of challenge that myth. Second, we need to have a desire to learn and grow. Third, we need to have patience. Just because you may not have the leadership capability today that you wish to have, that by no means indicates that you won't in the future. One of my wisest mentors, she told me something that really grounded my perspective on this. She said, anything worth doing well is worth doing poorly in the beginning. Whether it's leadership, a creative pursuit, whatever feeds your soul, anything worth doing well is worth doing poorly in the beginning. So I had a student come to me last semester and said, I really want to be like Gary Vaynerchuk. I don't know if you know who that is, but he's a motivational speaker, very popular on social media. So my student said, I really want to be like Gary Vaynerchuk, but I don't think I have the chops. Okay. I said, okay, well, how old do you think Gary Vaynerchuk is? I don't know, 38, 42, somewhere in there. I said, okay, how old are you? 18. I said, we don't know Gary Vaynerchuk of 18. We
Right.
know him of 38 to 42, however old he is, right? So I told my student, have patience, have patience, dear one. Anything worth doing well is worth doing poorly in the beginning. Start now and you can learn. And this is a very long answer to this question, but I'm super passionate about this question because I think we all have leadership capabilities. What I would recommend to do to cultivate your leadership to practice is learn from the greats. So rely on other people's wisdom who have wisdom on this topic. I recommend listen to as many audiobooks on the topic as you can. A lot of us don't have time for physical books. I'm a huge audiobook addict. I listen constantly. So I would say listen to everything by Brene Brown that you can get your hands on. Listen to The Art of Living by Thich Nhat Hanh, The Wise Heart by Jack Kornfield, Radical Acceptance by Tara Brach. These are my teachers, my wise teachers. They're not necessarily about leadership specifically. They're about mindfulness, but I think the two are kind of linked. So that would be my recommendation.
Those are great recommendations. And what about professional resources? Is there anything that people can do in terms of accessing professional resources if they want more information?
I recommend get it going on mindful.org. Mindful magazine has a vast resource for leadership and mindfulness-based topics you can learn from. They've got a great blog. I would just always recommend read. Yeah, of course I'm a nerd and I'm biased and that's where I come from. But I would say mindful.org, listening to podcasts as well.
Okay.
The Secular Buddhism podcast by Noah Rasheta is fantastic. It's non-religious. It's about mindfulness. So I would say absorb information that way.
Okay. I like that.